For this quick demo, we're going to paint this big old African elephant. The first job to do is get down a quick rough sketch. So we'll start with a warm grey, a mixture of ultramarine, quinacridone gold and alizarin. Not too strong, not too dark. That looks pretty good. It's not critical to get it perfect first up, but we'll just start locking in the darker areas. We'll leave some white on the high points. Again, it's not that important, it's just a matter of getting something on to get us started. I'm using this rough bristle brush. I don't want it to be too clean and accurate. I'd like to get some sort of character into the marks. And then up on the back here, I'll just dip into the water, thin that down a little, so it's a paler version of what we've been using. I'll be a little bit careful here where I cut in around where the tusks are. We want to keep that paper nice and clean there. Right, while it's wet, I'm going to mix a darker version of that colour. That's looking pretty good. And just where the darkest areas are, I'm going to just drop some of this in while it's all wet. So I've got more pigment in this mixture, which stops it causing those sort of cauliflower shapes you get. And we'll go a little bit stronger. Same three colours, ultramarine, quinacridone gold and alizarin. So we want to keep it grey, but a warm grey. And because we want this head area to be the focal area, that's where we want most contrast. So the darkest darks and the white paper left in that area. Wash the brush out and dry it off so it's just damp, and I'll just control this a little bit. I don't want it to be too tidy, but just so it doesn't sort of bleed out too much. All right, that's looking pretty good. That can sit and dry now. I'll just keep an eye on it while it is drying. Sometimes you can see here where colours get pushed out a little bit as the pigment floats out. The way to deal with that, I just like to dry this brush off and just very gently feather it over, or even use a hake brush. Hake brush is great for that. Just dry, completely dry, just feather it over those sort of bleed marks. You want a few of them. I mean, it makes it look more interesting, but you don't want it to look like stuff's been it's taken off without any control. We can move on to a rigger brush now and start to get some fine detail in. All these sort of ridge lines in the ears, in the trunk, on the legs, they can all be put in. They vary slightly. Some are a little wider than others, some are darker, some are very fine. It's now just a matter of building up that texture. So as we put these on, we can take another brush, a 1/2 inch flat brush, wash it out, dry it so it's damp, and then just feather out some of these marks slightly, just to take that hard edge off some of them. Okay, now around the eye, there's quite a lot of sort of interesting grooves and contour lines, so we'll put those in, and then we can work on just getting that dark shape into the eye. We'll just build up some shadow on these tusks. closest one. The top edge that sits beyond the elephant can be darkened slightly, and then soften that mark with a clean damp brush. So white back here, darker at the front. The more distant tusk, we can make that similar sort of grey, just so it's a little more obvious. I just want to splash a little bit of texture into the belly of the elephant there. So I've loaded this brush up with that grey. I'm just going to very loosely splatter it on. Well, not that loosely. I want to get it on the elephant, but not on the background if I can. So once it's on, carefully blot it up. So we've got that marking there, but not too much contrast, not too dark. It's still a little bit strong, so I'll take a piece of paper towel and lift a bit more off. That's better. I've mixed up a similar colour to we used on most of the elephant, and I'm going to tint it with some white gesso. So I'll just stir that in. I want it to be fairly pale, and I can adjust it. I can thin it down. I'll put a little bit more gesso in there. And what I want to do is just lose that back section of the elephant. So very roughly. Now wash out the brush and break it up a bit. I want to leave that reasonably rough, but I'll just gently lift it back with a hake brush. The hake brush is great. I keep rubbing on this piece of towel just to keep it dry, and it'll just lift moisture out of that mixture and spread it around. So you've got quite a lot of control. And what it does, it just gives it a sort of a nice sort of dirty, dusty atmosphere rather than a sort of bland outline of an elephant. All right, I think that should settle down as it dries. And once that's dry, I can come back with charcoal pencil, just put in a little more detail and just bring a little bit of life back into this area. So these are fairly rough, loose marks. I don't want to put a lot of detail into the back end of the elephant, just more a suggestion of the textures that are visible at the front. Even very sort of scribbly marks work well. That's probably enough.